All right. God, I know you're there, usually. We've had some good times, haven't we? Our 7 years together have been unforgettable. Look, I don't do this often, but I've got a favor to ask. God, there's this conference, and my app just crashed. There's this conference, and a bunch of my friends are going to be there, and even a few of my heroes. And I don't know what to say. So God, I just pray that you use me. Words fail me, but I know you're there. So God, just be with me and guide me, and keep this thing rolling along. Thank you. Amen. All right. So, okay. That always happens, doesn't it? So I'm going to do this presentation, and let's see. Technical glitch. I'm the security guy. I'm a computer guy. So, Zach, forget what I said about the time. So, here we go. All right, words are powerful. Words can create universes. Words can destroy lives. And maybe you've heard a few. I love you. I believe in you. Let there be light. I can't. It's over. I don't love you anymore. You aren't good enough. It is finished. Words can be spoken to someone else or used on ourselves. Words can be daggers that kill dreams with 1,000 tiny cuts. Words can spark a revolution of hope and love by teaching the world to sing in perfect harmony. Yeah, they're powerful. I believe that God created each of us with intentionality. When He drew up the blueprint for you and I, He created world changers. He embedded a potential inside each of us and designed it to be triggered by our passion. I believe that each of us were designed with a purpose, with a destiny to step into and fulfill. Okay, well, honestly, I believe that about you guys. Sometimes I get a little glimpse of that for myself, but, sometimes I see things that line up with my passions that seem kind of like destiny, and it's kind of groovy, but I can't really step into it. I know myself pretty well, so I know what I can and what I can't do. For example, just a few years into my walk with God, I was standing at the back of the sanctuary, and I was there with a friend, and we were watching our worship band practice. He turned to me and asked one of those questions, the fun ones. He says, if you could serve in any way that you possibly could, sky's the limit, what would it be? And I just pointed up at the stage, and I said, I'd be leading worship. But I can't. See, I've been trying to play the guitar since I was 13, and I still can't make it through a whole song. And my voice, yeah, nobody wants to hear that. So, yeah. But God, I can't. Okay, but now jump forward just a couple of years. David, the ministry leader, says, we need you to lead worship, at least until we can find somebody better. So same stage, same ministry that I spoke those bold words at, and right, I can't. Not that I don't want to. I've got a bunch of legit excuses. God says do it, though, and I say, but God, I can't. But I stepped into it in faith, knowing that I'd fail without divine intervention. But God, I can't turned into I can't. But God, I strummed and sang about amazing grace, how He loves us, and happy days every single week for 12 months. Wow, God did an amazing work there that time. It was one of those once-in-a-lifetime walking with God in incredible kinds of ways things, I knew God had used me, but it was a season. It was a glorious season. But it ended. And then God said, David, you're going to go on a mission trip. Do I really need to list the excuses? I'm about as introverted as somebody can be. Even if I knew what to say to an unbeliever, I'm not qualified to share. God, you know how jacked up my past is. Plus, the only other country I've been to is Canada. I'm not exactly a world traveler. I'm a computer guy. I don't really do manual labor. Plus, I've got responsibilities and no vacation time and no money. So, yeah, once again, but God, I can't. I can't, but God, one winter Sunday morning, my pastor announced that we're partnering with another church to go to Brazil. And I just knew I was going. And so was my wife. And we did. I didn't know what I would do or how I would help, but I knew I was called, and God worked out all the details. Oh, but I can't share the gospel, right? Then I found myself in Roberto's house. He was a lifelong atheist who knew the answer to every question. He knew what buttons to push when talking to a Christian. He knew the questions to ask to shake their faith. He was stubborn and considered himself well educated. Oh, and he was cynical. So cynical. Basically, he was me. To this day, I think Roberto only welcomed us in so that he could toy with us. There's his house. He knew exactly what to expect. He knew what he was going to hear, but there was a wild card that he hadn't expected, me. So we had a conversation, we connected. When I left his house, he and I both knew there was a powerful force at work. Some undeniable force had taken a hardened, lifelong atheist from Oklahoma with 3 college degrees and turned him to Christ. Then he took that new believer and got him to Brazil, and then that guy showed up at Roberto's house. You could say there was an intelligent design behind the whole journey. The fingerprints of something greater than both of us were all over the encounter, and we both knew it. And I told him just who and what was at work. I walked out of there that day, though, with Roberto still unconvinced. Maybe I was sent there to persuade Roberto to become a believer, but I couldn't. I can't. Then Friday happened. We were dedicating the chapel that we helped to build, and there was Roberto sitting on the back row in the chair closest to the door, just listening. He hadn't been able to sleep since we had talked. His worldview had been shaken. He had been wrestling with God. Near the end of the service, I lost sight of him. I figured he slipped out the back. That's what I would have done. But then I spotted him walking back down from the front to his seat. He had gone down and prayed with the pastors. He had decided to follow Jesus. Yeah, I can't. But God. I'm a realist, though, and I'm still cynical. And Roberto had a lot of demons. I'd felt a sense of urgency when I had talked to him at his house. Over the next few months, after the crazy Americans left, he backslid. And then he'd jump forward again. He'd disappear from the church for a few weeks, and then he'd return with trinkets and tokens from his former life. Because see, like a lot of people in Rio Grande do Sul, he wasn't actually an atheist, he was a spiritist. And so he would bring his good luck charms and his little idols that he'd had around his house, and he would bring them back to the church, and he'd lay them down and surrender again. And then he would disappear a few weeks later. About 6 months after we left, he came back to the church in tears. He told the pastor that he was tired of the fight. He had gone through his house and found every last idol that he owned, and he was throwing them all down at the altar. Right then and there, he tearfully told everyone he was finally all in with Jesus. He wanted nothing else but Jesus, and the church rejoiced with him. And then Roberto went home, back to his modest little house, and then he really went home. 3 days later, Roberto had a heart attack and died. When I heard the news, my mind flashed back to all the impossible coincidences that led to crossing Roberto's path. And I can't write a story like that, but God can. And I've got a million more stories like that I'd love to share, but I can't. But maybe we have time for one more. Right? Love the least of these. Jesus said that, right? But there's just so much need. It can be overwhelming. And what can I do? There's so much pain, so much hurt, so much loss, so much need. I'm just one person. We're just one family. My kids are pretty awesome. Hey, kids. But honestly, I'm not that good with other people's kids. That's not my calling. Sure, there's plenty of kids in need, but me, I can't help there. I can't disrupt my family, my lifestyle, to take in some girl who's bounced around her whole life, a girl who still worships the birth mother who abandoned her at age 10 to pursue drugs and men, a girl whose father's alcoholism undermined the tiny shot that she would have had at a sane, normal life. What can I do for a girl that is 1 year from graduating high school but is so addicted to electronic games that the real world isn't real for her? How can I bring hope and light into a life like this? I can't take her into my family. I can't treat her like a daughter, welcoming her in and loving her unconditionally, asking for nothing in return. I was raised upper middle class, sheltered from a lot of bad stuff. I can't help someone with such a painful past, and I can't accept someone like that as my own. And even if I could, if graduation day came And she gave us a quick hug and then headed back to her own life, her old life. I know I couldn't handle that. But God did. Look, I can't tell you what your calling is, but I can tell you that you have one. I've got a billion I can'ts in my life. I can't write. I can't travel. I can't sing. And I can't take in any lost, hurt, or abandoned kids. Go. And I can't take pictures. I've seen that one. And there's no way I could ever get on stage and speak. But God can use me to do all that. And He can wipe out all your I can'ts too. These aren't just happy, encouraging words. I've lived it out over and over and over again for the last 7 years. I've been looking to God and saying, I believe in you, but I don't believe in me. And He has consistently responded with, I believe in you. David, let me show you what we can do. When I take a deep look at myself and realize how little God has to work with, I remember the words of Jeremiah, Lord God, it is you who have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and your outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for you. Nothing. So maybe I can't, but God can.